Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm the creator of the Hope for a Better Marriage Patreon and Facebook community. It is for married women who are looking for ways to improve their marriage that doesn't require their husband's active participation. Does this approach inspire husbands to change to become better versions of themselves, show up as better husbands and fathers? Yes. But it's not requiring your husband to sit down and read books with you, do activities. He will simply be responding to the changes that you're making and the way that you're showing up differently and treating him differently. It really does work, I promise. We do use The Empowered Wife by Laura Doyle as a framework because I found it's just the most concise and practical way to help you have the skills and tools you need to transform your marriage. And I decided to make a series of short videos explaining some of the tools and phrases that Laura Doyle should suggest in her book because there can be some pitfalls or just challenges in implementing them. And I kind of want to really dig into the heart. Of course, I recommend reading the book. You could start by listening to the audiobook. There's also an Empowered Wife podcast. But if you're starting to implement this and having a little difficulty, it can be really great to have a group of women doing the same. I know that's helped me so much over the past 4 years. So, without further ado, we're going to start with whatever you think. Whatever you think is meant to be used for something, especially things that are on your husband's paper. And Laura Doyle has this really awesome explanation of trying to figure out what's on your paper and what's on his paper. This is part of relinquishing control and establishing respect, which are two of the Laura Doyle 6 intimacy skills. So, you should not be trying to control and dictate things that are solely on your husband's paper. And there can be a little bit of maybe different opinions on certain things, but things that are certainly on your husband's paper, on his, would be things like his job, what he eats, how he gets dressed, those kinds of things, decisions that are really on his paper, his domain. It could even say he's the one who manages the cars and you really have no knowledge of that stuff. That would be on his paper. Things that are kind of, yeah, in his domain. And then, of course, you're going to have things on your paper. And on his paper is his mood. And I will be talking about that in other videos as well. Your mood is on your paper. Your happiness is on your paper. Your self care is on your paper. So the one I wanted to, so when I said what he eats is on his paper, you might be the one, making meals and you might be taking some of his preferences in. But say, it's on his paper to decide whether or not he eats the vegetable, whether or not he wants to have leftovers for his lunch or buy lunch. That's on his paper. And there might be reasons why you'd want to control and suggest he bring lunch from home, eat healthier, but you really want to duct tape, which is another Laura Doyle tool. It's not a skill in itself, but things on his paper, we really want to try to not give our opinion and suggestions. There are things that are shared paper. So shared paper, and again, there's going to be some nuance and gray area, and this is where having a community of women who have already been implementing the skills to ask questions of can be super helpful. That's why my group exists. And my group is also open to women who are not reading Empowered Wife, but it is really useful if you are. So shared paper, that could be parenting decisions, things potentially about the household. Again, it depends on certain domains and things like that. But there is going to be shared paper. Sometime, and you might give your input in a respectful way, but sometimes, you want to defer to his judgment. And that's so things on his paper, things you want to defer to his judgment. So he might ask you, hey, what should I wear for work tomorrow or something? And you can say, whatever you think. I trust you to you always look so great, or I trust you. The trust one is a little bit, you don't always want to follow it up by I trust you to make the best decision, but occasionally, especially if certain areas like with parenting or certain areas where your husband might not be as confident, I trust you to make the best decision, or just saying something which is a spouse fulfilling prophecy, something positive about him can help give him the confidence. But certain times that I use whatever you think quite a bit. In my marriage, my husband has always been decently independent. So there wasn't really a lot on his paper that he was having me do, but there was maybe shared paper or just maybe some instances where really I didn't need to have an opinion. I didn't need to, have my input. I could just surrender decisions. And honestly, it's a lot more freeing. So say we're driving in the car and he might say, "Oh, where should I park?" Whatever you think. He's the one just choosing to park or something like that. Um, Whatever you think. So that is supposed to be used on his paper, sometimes on shared paper. And there might be things where you offer your opinion or your insight into things, maybe with children, maybe what you'd like to do for the weekend. But then you can let him know, like, I trust you to decide for our family. And only say that if it's really true. If this is something that you really feel strongly about, you don't want to do that. You have to follow through with whatever you think. So the point is to really defer to his judgment. And sometimes he might not make the best decision. And that's where Laura Doyle talks about life lessons, not wife lessons. Is it better that you just said whatever you think, expressed your confidence, and had harmony? And then, he maybe didn't make the best decision. There's some consequences to that decision. It's better that, and then what if you had argued back and forth and he still made that decision? Then you guys are you have the broken intimacy, and then he also has the consequences, and you might have the temptation to say, "I told you so," or something, which you should not do. So whatever you think is expressing confidence in him, allowing him to make decisions. If you had been pretty controlling in the past and you had to kind of have your input on a lot of things in his life, you are going to be saying it a lot, and he's probably going to be really confused, and he might not even like it in the beginning. But it's really important that you get in the habit of just letting go, relinquishing control, trusting your husband, and allowing him to start making more decisions for your family and really for him. A lot of this, again, you want to definitely start with things on his paper, and then there can be some decision making and nuance and things that are on shared paper. But the more you can defer to him and express confidence in him, that's really going to build up the respect and the intimacy in your marriage. And again, this all goes with this interior transformation, which Laura does. So there's 6 intimacy skills, and they're in order for a reason because they build on each other. But we're going through this interior transformation where we're starting to see our husband in a more positive light, and we're starting to collect evidence of his goodness so we can believe in him. We can truly mean it when we say whatever you think. All right. So that's kind of a little background about using whatever you think. When should we not use whatever you think, and when will it drive our husbands crazy? It will drive our husbands crazy when he's asking for our desires, when it's something that's on our shared paper and maybe even on our paper, something he wants to do for us. He wants to make us happy. So when your husband is asking anything related to what do you want, your desires, that is not a time to say whatever you think. I will guarantee you it will likely frustrate, maybe even cause an argument. So that you can have wonderful intentions, you want to be respectful, you are relinquishing control, but it's so important to recognize when he's asking for your desire. So, classic example, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? Where do you want to go? And I can see how sometimes, like maybe if it's like a date situation, you want to be surprised. So you could still let him know, like, "Oh, I really don't want this," or "I'm really craving this or this." Um, you can decide, but these are my preferences. Surprise me. But I wouldn't like give him like no input. If there's something you want, express it. He may choose something different, and that's okay. But if he's asking for your desires, it's really not a time to say whatever you think. Stuff with the kids, that's again, especially if he's so used to you being part of the decision making, and a lot of like in a healthy marriage, you're going to have dialogue. You're going to both have input. So if your marriage is at that place, where your husband genuinely, he's not like deferring responsibility to you, he wants your input, you can let him know your side and then hear out his side. And again, you trust his judgment to decide, however he wants to handle it. But you don't have to offer like no input at all. If it's on his paper, say he's applying for jobs or doing something like that, you can be a sounding board. You're not telling him what to do, you're listening to him. A lot of men like to think and process out loud. So, like when my husband's going through this process, I might ask a couple questions, I might affirm certain things, I might be like, "Oh yeah, um, that is a strength of yours. It does sound like that." And then if when my husband's discerning applying to other jobs and he tells me like the cons, I might be like, "Oh yeah, like that does sound like, um, yeah, something that might be a problem or something that's not worth it." I don't know. Um, so I might give my husband like a little input, but I'm not telling him what to do. I'm not guiding the process. I'm a sounding board for him, essentially a respectful sounding board who is his cheerleader, believes in him. So we want to use whatever you think, things on your husband's paper. Um, Maybe if it's like stuff his like health, stuff like that. A lot of times husbands just like to talk out loud. They like to dream out loud. If he's really pushing you again, sometimes you still need to stick to that whatever you think, especially if he's trying to get you to take on responsibility for something on his paper. Or again, he might just want a little bit of your input. Might want information that you trust in his judgment, that that he's capable of doing this. But do not use whatever you think when your husband is asking for your desires. So, because he wants to make you happy. So, if it's something he's trying to make you happy, if he's asking, like, where you want to go on a vacation, stuff like that. I mean, you can say, surprise me. But it's probably good to like let him know, give him some guidelines. Like, I would love a warm vacation. I would love mountain vacation, something like that. I hope that's helpful. I know these always end up being longer than I anticipated, but comment below, please, if you have any questions. If this was helpful, please like, subscribe, share, help me to get this message out there. Thank you.